In this video, I'm going to explain how you cancel a pope. But first, I want to explain what I mean by cancel. So I'm going to give you a few analogies, or a few examples. I'm old enough to remember Reagan and how the left tried to cancel him. I would say half the country believed Ronald Reagan was a racist, bigot, womanizer, horrible person, a Nazi. I mean, they just totally tried to cancel him. And what I learned was the left uses these tactics from communism. Saul Alinsky, an American communist in the 60s, actually wrote a book, Rules for Radical, and he lays out all of them. And the three main tactics or strategies they use are these. Number one, destroy the character of your opponent. So they just try to make that person so bad, and the reason that you won't listen to them, that you can't support them. You would be embarrassed to support them. And the reason they do this is because the left's arguments are so weak, so illogical, so unscientific, they cannot win arguments when they debate conservatives. So instead, they just go after your character and try to destroy you. Another tactic they use is they project. They accuse you of being exactly what they are. Remember, they accused Trump of being this dictator, and then they were mad at him during COVID when he could have had the powers of a king, like these horrible leaders of Canada and in Europe, where they locked down their people and forced them to live like slaves. Instead, Trump gave the authority to the governors. You take care of the state. It's the way you want. So, the Republican states like Florida and Georgia, we were free, I used to get people from Jersey, New York to come down and say, man, it's like communist China up there. I can't live like this. I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown. And these were the Democrats. And then when Biden came in, he acted like a dictator, mandating these jabs that we now know. If you go, if you do your research, we know everything we said about him was true. I knew it was true then, but now most people realize it's true. And then the issue is never the issue. It's another strategy. So the issue wasn't Reagan was a racist, even though he wasn't, but even if he was, that wasn't their issue. Their issue was he believed in limited government, what us Catholics Catholic social teaching rather calls subsidiarity. Limited government, the smaller the government, the better. Gives more freedom to the people. The bigger the government, you see, like in China, there's no freedom. So that was the issue. The issue wasn't that he was this horrible person. The issue is never the issue. So I'm going to show you how they use this against popes they don't like. Okay, people, not generally the left. People that claim to be conservative, they believe, in the conservative issues, political issues are pro-life, pro-traditional marriage, and so on and so forth, limited government. But there was a bishop when I first started this channel, and all the usual suspects were painting this guy as this liberal, this ultra liberal, and like bashing this guy, constantly criticizing. And I was like, wow, this is like why would you do that against the leader of the church? Like, how do you call yourself Catholic and bash you? You sound worse than I was when I was a Protestant and used to bash these guys. And I listened to this bishop. I'm like, he doesn't sound liberal. Actually, he sounds like a great evangelist of the church. Actually, it's very conservative. But I would keep hearing all these usual suspects, is the biggest YouTube channels bashing this bishop. And I kind of remember a turning point. One of the things they were criticizing was, BLM, Black Lives, Marxists, and Antifa, and all these left-wing radical terrorists were destroying statues at Catholic churches, pulling down statues of Mary, statues of Jesus, defacing them. And they said they were going to go after this statue of Saint Cyril, if I might be pronouncing his name wrong. And it was in this particular bishop's diocese. And they're like, yeah, he's not speaking out against it. He's not speaking out against it. And of course, they're calling him a liberal and whatever, all the names they call our bishops. And I remember seeing a picture of him standing in front of the statue, like 30 other Catholic men praying the rosary, as Black Lives Marxists and Antifa come up to destroy it. And they stopped in their tracks and they cowardly walked away and didn't do it. I actually made a video about it. I'm going to post it. But if you're wondering who this bishop was that everybody called a liberal, and if you believed these Catholic YouTubers that were trying to cancel him, you would be embarrassed to say anything. So whenever I quoted him, people would like criticize me. Why are you quoting him? He's a liberal. I'm like, no, he's not. And then I think the turning point was that, and his name is Bishop Barron. Yeah, Bishop Barron that we're trying to cancel. If you go back like 8-9 years ago, all these YouTube channels were criticizing Bishop Barron like this liberal. And I remember putting a picture up on my, posting the picture, and I was like, no, that can't be him, because he was wearing a Los Angeles Dodgers baseball cap. I'm like, look at him, that's him in the hat. And then even his biggest critic, Dr. Taylor Marshall, posted that same picture and gave props to Bishop Barron. And that was like the turning point where people started listening to him, like, oh, I guess he's not a liberal. But right before that, I had did a video about Taylor Marshall criticizing him, and I said, and it was early on, so I didn't know a lot about Marshall. And so I kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt, and I said, I think he misunderstood what Bishop Barron was saying. I'll post that video too. I think it's called Who's Right, Taylor Marshall or Bishop Barron? But basically, Bishop Barron was just like talking philosophically and talking about a theologian in the past who said hell might be empty. And he was just kind of giving his argument, but he never said hell was empty. He never said he believed that. He just said this was this guy's argument, basically. But Marshall ran with it and was like, Bishop Barron saying hell's empty, you know. And so everyone's thinking, wow, this guy don't even believe in hell. He must be a liberal. But Bishop Barron is no liberal. He's one of the best evangelists we have in America, in my humble opinion, for the church. And a lot of my Protestant friends have converted, and they started listening to him. There's never just one guy. Like I say, Pope Francis brought me into the church. There's never just one guy that brings you in. There's multiple. And Bishop Barron helped a lot of evangelicals who were looking for the truth become Catholic. And it didn't start with Bishop Barron, because again, the issue isn't the issue. They're destroying his character, not because of the issue. You go back, Pope St. John Paul II, I remember being a Protestant and hearing some Catholics criticizing him. And they took stuff out of context, like he was overseas in the middle, like a Muslim nation, and everybody was handing him gifts. And in that particular nation, like it was customary to kiss the gift to say you're thankful. And someone handed him a book that looked like a Quran. Other people said it was the Greek Septuagint. Other people said they didn't know. Other people said he probably didn't know. He was handed a lot of gifts. He was a little older at the time, and he was just kissing him. So there's a picture. And people were like, oh, he's a modernist pope. He's a heretic. He's a liberal. He's a feminist. And they try and cancel Pope St. John Paul II, but God had the last laugh, because now he's Pope St. John Paul II. So St. JP2 was almost canceled, or they tried to cancel him by calling him a liberal. And he was Ronald Reagan's greatest ally in defeating the evil empire, the Soviet Union, the communists. Historians tell us it was him, Margaret Thatcher, and Ronald Reagan were was the biggest reason the Soviet Union fell. So these people have always tried to cancel bishops. The Bishop of Rome even isn't out of their scope. You know, they don't care how high rank you are in the Catholic Church if you disagree with their issue. And they don't always tell you what the issue is. Like I said, they project, they destroy your character, and the issue is never the issue. And you see that with Pope Francis. I remember early on, people saying, oh, he's a liberal, this, that, and the other thing. He's a modernist, horrible Pope. And I was like, why is he a liberal? Oh, he wants to ordain women. He wants to have same-sex marriage. And I was like, wait a minute. The first two priests he excommunicated, the first one, Father Greg Reynolds, he excommunicated for advocating women priests and blessing same-sex unions. And the second priest he excommunicated, Father Roberto Francisco, he excommunicated him because he was teaching homosexuality wasn't a sin. I'm like, what are you talking about? In fact, Pope Francis changed changed canon law to make it an excommunicated offense. You're automatically excommunicated if you're a priest that ordains a woman. Both you and the woman are automatically excommunicated. So I'm like, where is this coming from? And I used to have like a little index card with all the dates and the sources. So I'm going by memory, but sometime in May of 2023, I believe it was. I think it was May 15, 2023 or May 21st. Pope Francis made a statement, and then Dr. Taylor Marshall did a video, and it was entitled, Pope Francis says homosexuality isn't a crime. And then in the video, he's reading all the verses in the Bible, where, you know, Leviticus, where it says homosexuality is an abomination, Romans 1, basically saying it's an abomination. I think Timothy says homosexuality is a sin that leads to hell. But he's reading all these verses, and everybody in the comments are just bashing, like talking like about Pope Francis, like he's some scumbag on the street that just killed their mother. I was like, whoa, this is so disrespectful. And so the whole thing, all he raises is one quote, Pope Francis, quote, homosexuality is not a crime. So I looked to the quote, I find it in the Associated Press, I believe it was May 15, 2023. And Pope Francis, again, was in a Muslim nation where they were killing people that were suspected of being homosexuals. Like, you know, these Muslim countries, you know, like in Gaza, they would throw you off a roof and burn you alive if you were a homosexual. That's why it was funny when Netanyahu said he's seen these Harvard students with signs, queers for Hamas, and he's like, or queers for Gaza, or queers for Palestine. He's like, dude, that's like chickens holding up signs, chickens for KFC. But so he's talking to these Muslims leaders, and he's trying to get them not to kill people just for the crime of homosexuality. So the Associated Press asked them straight up, is homosexuality a sin? And Pope Francis' quote was, homosexuality is a sin, but it's not a crime that should be punishable by death. Taylor Marshall totally did not give the first part. This is what these people do when they try and cancel someone. They do it. They did it to Reagan. They do it to Trump. They did it to Bishop Barron. They take people out of context. And then everybody's saying, "Oh, he's gonna bless same-sex unions. He wants to bless same-sex unions." And I heard him quote so many times before this that the church couldn't do this. So a couple cardinals asked him straight up, and his response was, the church cannot bless same-sex unions because God cannot bless sin. That was like in 2021. I think it was in June 23rd, 2021. And this is all public information. But people are locked in their bubbles of the YouTubers they like and they trust. And this is why I say it doesn't matter who's right, it matters what's right. You know, because you get in this bubble where you think everything this person is saying is true because you like them. So Pope Francis got to the point where it was embarrassing to say you support him. Like when I would say I love Pope Francis, people were like, oh, he's a liberal. Are you a liberal? I can't believe it. I thought you were a conservative Catholic. I thought you were Orthodox. He's a liberal. I'm like, he's not a liberal. And so then like the frog in the boiling water, these people who were trying to destroy Pope Francis, cancel him, turned up the heat. And again, Dr. Taylor Marshall, and I don't mean to pick on him. A lot of these guys are saying this, but he's the biggest. He has the biggest channel out there. And he said, actually made a video, and he said Pope Francis is a heretic, which is heretical to say. If you know Catholic and you're a traditionalist Catholic, only a pope could declare a prior pope a heretic. A layman like us, even a bishop or a priest, can't declare a pope a heretic. And then he anathematized him on another video 3 times. You're anathema, Pope Francis, you're anathema. Like he has that power. But I think the people that watch him might think that, but he doesn't. And so this is why he called him a heretic. I'm not going to read I did a video on this years ago, and I said everything Pope Francis said, but it really comes down to this key verse that he claimed he was a heretic. So Pope Francis is just having an impromptu talk. It was nothing official, nothing dogmatic, nothing magisterial, just a talk. And he's talking about communion of the saints and those who were baptized Catholic, baptized Catholic and walked away from the faith. And so this is the context of the conversation. And then he comes down and says, yes, these two, all of them, the blasphemers, all of them, we are brothers. See, because when you're baptized in the Trinity, when you're a baptized Catholic, you have an indelible mark that's with you forever, for all eternity. Just like a priest is always a priest. Even if he gets excommunicated, he's still a priest. Priests have, I learned talking to Jim Dooley, the demonologist, the other night, I learned priests have 3 indelible marks. We have 2, baptism and confirmation. They have baptism, confirmation, and holy orders. So they're our brothers. They might be fallen away brothers. They might have blasphemed the Lord. They might have apostatized, but they're still our brothers. And we need to pray for them. His whole point was we need to pray for these people. We need to love them back into the kingdom. That was the whole point of the conversation, but he ends like this. Yes, to all of them. The blasphemers, all of them. We are brothers. This is the communion of saints. The communion of saints holds together the community of believers on earth and in heaven. And on earth, the saints, the sinners, all. Taylor Marshall reads this, and this is how he read it. He said, yes, these two, all of them, the blasphemers, all of them, we are brothers. This is the communion of saints. The communion of saints holds together the community of believers on earth and in heaven. The sinners, all. He skips, and on earth, the saints, the sinners, all. And declares him a heretic. So now it's okay because Doctor of Philosophy, here's a doctorate in philosophy, Dr. Taylor Marshall says he's a heretic. So now it's okay. Now everybody starts chiming in. Oh, he's a heretic. He teaches heresy. So then I'm just showing you the progression, how they can cancel a pope. So then Taylor Marshall starts taking St. Robert Bellarmine, who ironically was a Jesuit. So St. Robert Bellarmine, he says St. Robert Bellarmine teaches, and he's a doctor of the church, and he teaches that if a pope teaches heresy, he ceases to be pope. So then what's the logical conclusion? Taylor Marshall wouldn't go as far as saying Pope Francis isn't the pope, but he'll lead people to believe that. Well, I went and read what St. Robert Bellarmine said, and he said, I don't think it's possible. I don't believe it's possible that a pope could teach heresy, based on Matthew 16:18, the gates of hell shall not prevail. The church has always taught a pope can't teach heresy. So he goes, I don't believe a church, and he said, I don't believe, so he's giving his personal belief. This is not a teaching of the church. He says, I don't believe a pope could teach heresy. But hypothetically, if he did, I suppose he would cease to be pope. Again, they leave out the first part of that sentence. They take him out of context. So now it's okay to believe that a pope, and you see Patrick Coffin, he says, oh, Pope Francis ceased to be pope, and, he's a heretic, yada, yada. Father James Altman came out and said, oh, because Robert Bellarmine said this, and he taught heresy, he's no longer the pope. And then, of course, how Protestants work is then they split from each other. They go deeper and deeper into the protesting beliefs. So then you have Vigano saying, yeah, he's not the Pope. He's the Antichrist. And Now he joined a cult that broke away from the SSPX. They're called the Resistance, the SSPX Resistance. The Resistance cult teaches that no pope was the pope since like 1958. So Vigano and his cult are rebaptizing Catholics that were baptized after Vatican II, which is a mortal sin. They're reordaining priests and bishops. In fact, Vigano was reordained by the late Bishop Williamson, who was twice excommunicated. He actually got thrown out of the SSPX for being too heretical. I mean, getting thrown out of the SSPX for being too heretical, it's like getting thrown out of the KKK for being too racist. So it's just getting worse and worse. You see how the frog, the water in the boiling water is boiling? So they're trying to destroy Pope Francis's credibility. So everybody hates him. They assume he's a heretic. And then we can fall into line with their position that it's Vatican II's fault. See, the issue is never the issue. The issue is Vatican II. They hate Vatican II, and they hate the ordinary Mass. The SSPX, which Taylor Marshall is always talking about and bragging about, and always having Vigano on, and quoting Vigano, they actually teach, their official teaching of the SSPX is the ordinary Mass that 95% of us go to, that the church has approved for 60 years, is intrinsically evil. So they're saying, when you go and you receive the literal body and blood of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, the literal body, blood, and full divinity of Jesus Christ, you're doing something intrinsically evil. That is evil. And people wonder why I call people out. They're like, oh, we don't want division, Rob. We want unity. But you have to call out wolves in sheep clothing. You have to call out servants of Satan that appear as angels of light. You don't think these guys are going to look like angels of light? Satan could appear as an angel of light. Why would you think his servants wouldn't appear that way? So, it's going to get a lot of people mad. It's going to get a lot of people unsubscribe. But this is what they do. They make it so unpalatable to accept someone because they destroy his character with lies, slander, taking him out of context. And you can go, for every argument you have, I guarantee I made a video disproving your argument. Just by reading the quote from Pope Francis in context. So don't let them cancel this Pope, because you know what? They tried to cancel Pope John Paul II and he became a saint. And if I still had a bookie like I had in Jersey, I would call him up and bet Pope Francis is going to be a saint one day. And you're like, oh, this guy lost his mind. Yeah, because you bought into this cancellation of Pope Francis. Just like many people bought into Reagan being a racist and Trump being a racist. It's called cancel. A lot of people thought Bishop Barron was this liberal heretic, for years. The difference is Bishop Barron is pretty big on social media so people can see him. Pope Francis isn't. So we're not getting as much of Pope Francis as we did of Bishop Barron. If we did, people would realize how ridiculous these anti-Pope Francis, just like Republicans that hate Trump, we call them never Trumpers. I call Catholics who hate Pope Francis never Popers. So the last thing I want to leave you with, I show you how they destroy character, how the issue is never the issue, but projection. How do they project? Well, they project Pope Francis, Bishop Barron, everybody that came after Vatican II, the priests, the bishops, the popes, as modernists. And they get this language from a great saint of the church, Pope St. Pius X. But what did he mean by modernist? Listen to his actual words, and you will see the people that are calling Pope Francis a modernist are actually the modernists themselves. Listen very carefully. These are the words of Pope St. Pius X, talking to his priests. Distracted with so many occupations, it is easy to forget the things that lead to perfection in priestly life. It is easy for the priest to delude himself and to believe that by busying himself with the salvation of the souls of others, he consequently works for his own sanctification. Alas, let not this delusion lead you to error, because no one gives what he does not have. That's pretty deep. Think about that. You can't love if you haven't received the love of Christ. You can't give the love of Christ if you haven't received the love of Christ. You can't forgive if you haven't received forgiveness. You can't sanctify others if you haven't received sanctification. In order to sanctify others, it is necessary not to neglect any of the ways proposed for the sanctification of our own selves. The Pope is the guardian of dogma and of morals. He is the custodian of the principles that make families sound, nations great, souls holy. He is the counselor of princes and of peoples. He is the head under whom no one feels tyrannized because he represents God himself. He is the supreme Father who unites in himself all that may exist that is loving, tender, divine. It seems incredible and even painful that there be priests to whom this recommendation must be made, Father Altman, but we are regrettably in our age, in this hard, unhappy situation of having to tell priests, love the Pope. And how, this is key, this is where they project. Listen how Pope Pius X said we should love the Pope. And think about how these people attack the Pope. And how must the Pope be loved? Not in word nor in tongue, but in deed and in truth. When one loves a person, one tries to adhere in everything to his thoughts, to fulfill his will, to perform his wishes. And if our Lord Jesus Christ said of himself, if anyone love me, he will keep my word. Therefore, in order to demonstrate our love for the Pope, it is necessary to obey him. My Protestant brothers' heads are exploding, and these anti-popers, these never-popers' heads are exploded. They're no different. Because true Catholics believe the Pope is the vicar of Christ. He's Christ's representative on earth. Therefore, when we love the Pope, there are no discussions regarding what he orders or demands, or at what point of obedience must we go. They're always questioning, we don't have to obey everything the Pope says. And in what things he is to be obeyed. When we love the Pope, we do not say that he has not spoken clearly enough. Oh, he's too ambiguous. This Pope needs to change. No, we don't say that according to Pope St. Pius X. That's Protestantism, brother. That's Protestantism. I was a Protestant for 30 years. I can smell a Protestant a mile away. Many of them are great Christians, better Christians than me. But don't call yourself a Catholic if you're going to question the Pope. That is not okay, so we do not say that he has not spoken clearly enough, almost as if he were forced to repeat to the ear of each one. That's what they want to say. Well, explain to me. I have every right. I'm a Catholic YouTuber with 1 million followers. You need to explain to me, Pope Francis. That's how these people talked about him. Almost as if he was forced to repeat to the ear of each one the will clearly expressed so many times, not only in person, but with letters and other public documents. Like everything I found out that was lies about the Pope, I read through public documents. You can read it. You can find it. It just takes time, We don't have the right to call him up and say, you need to explain this to me because I don't fully understand it. But with letters and other public documents, we do not place his orders in doubt, adding the facile pretext of those unwilling to obey. Oh, that is not the Pope who commands, but those who surround him. Well, we do not limit the field in which he might and must exercise his authority. We do not set above the authority of the Pope that of other persons, however learned, who dissent from the Pope, who even though learned are not holy, because whoever is holy cannot dissent from the Pope. Do you hear that? Whoever is holy cannot dissent from the Pope. I know this is radical, and this is very traditional, but this is Catholicism. This is the cry of a heart filled with pain, with deep sadness I express, not for your sake, dear brothers, but to deplore with you the conduct of so many priests who not only allow themselves to debate and criticize, they allow themselves to debate and criticize the wishes of the Pope. Like, what's up with that? But are not even embarrassed. They're not even embarrassed to reach shameless and blatant disobedience with so much scandal for the good and with so great damage to souls. That's a modernist, someone who criticizes the Pope, dissents from the Pope, and they're not even embarrassed about it. They're actually making money doing it. And they're laughing all the way to the bank of the SSPX, in my humble opinion. So much more I want to say, but I want to ask you to pray this Easter season and give thanks. St. Paul says, give thanks in all things and pray without ceasing. There is a battle. Satan hates the church, but guess who's winning? Jesus. I just did a video a few minutes ago. The Catholic churches are exploding. We're winning. And those who hate Vatican II and those who hate the ordinary Mass, they hate it. They're in denial. They're like, oh, the church is in decline because of Vatican II. The church is in decline because of the ordinary Mass. The only way we can rebuild the church is to go back to Vatican I. And the Vatican I guys say, the only way we can rebuild the church is if we deny Vatican I and go back to Trent. And the Protestants say, the only way we can restore the church is if we get rid of Trent and go back to the Council of Carthage in 397 AD. But if you're a true Catholic, you know that Jesus never lied when he said the gates of hell will not prevail. Because although they'll look at the same reports I showed you in this, the Pew Research, I'm looking at saying, wow, these are great numbers. And the same people are looking at saying, oh, these numbers are horrible. The church is failure because we have poor leadership, because we have a horrible pope, horrible bishops, horrible priests. I'm here to tell you they're lying to you. I have two of the greatest priests. I mean, these are the strongest Christian men I've ever met. And they're the greatest teachers, apologists, theologians, but most importantly, spiritual shepherds of their flock, my parish priests. And I've seen many great bishops, haven't met any personally, but I've seen many great bishops. I had Bishop Broglio, Archbishop Broglio, the president of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. I talked to him on air and off air, and I'm telling you, this guy is a godly man. He's a great leader in America. And under his leadership, the church is growing. And of course, you guys know I love Pope Francis. He was instrumental in bringing me home to the Catholic Church. And I believe, my personal opinion is, one day he'll be Saint Pope Francis. So God bless and stay Catholic. And please subscribe, because I guarantee I'm going to have a lot of people mad and unsubscribe, call me all kinds of names. You don't see the worst of them because I won't allow profanity on my channel. That's what I'll delete. If someone disagrees with me or criticizes me, I'll leave it up. But if they start cursing or blaspheming, I delete it. But so then they'll just send it to me in my email. But God bless and stay Catholic.